What's good, everybody? It's a lovely Tuesday afternoon. Yesterday, I had a long discussion about fighting games and all the things that could do better, and really all the things that at a base level, you, the consumer, should demand from fighting game companies. I had a lot of people say a lot of things about it. There was some arguments that I heard back about this, and that, and some of them were pretty interesting. One that keeps getting repeated is Japanese developers don't have to improve the netcode because they make netcode for Japanese players. And the netcode's perfectly fine for the people who play in Japan. That is some weeb lies. These are weeb lies you're telling yourself. It's the same thing as glorious Nippon internet has been folded 1,000 times so that the netcode is fantastic, even on great connections. Glorious Nippon internet. That's weeb witchcraft you're spitting. This is the online CPT match. This is a tournament match between Johnny and his opponent. You ready for this? This is the glorious Nippon internet you guys are talking about that handles connections perfectly fine. Silky smooth. Right? This looks fantastic. It's fantastic as Soccer Pro 765 dropping the tier 1. Silky smooth. And that's not counting experiences you have where you play in the arcades and arcade cabinets are laggy, or like you have like a weird connection with someone if you play them in Tekken on an arcade cabinet, or you know, whatever other issues you have with internet there. Internet quality is not going to just fix this. It's not like it's like you're in such a small region that it's going to be fine. That's not the point, right? Japan is bigger than just one city or one location. It's a large place. So the internet there, even if it's good, eventually the connection quality is not going to be good and you'll have a bad time. But I'm not having a bad time because bad against Prime. Drop the Twitch Prime. Thanks very much. Netcode is not a measure of how a system handles excellent connections. If you can play someone who lives 5 miles away from you online and the connection's great, that's normal. That should be fine. That's an excellent connection quality, or it should be anyway, unless what your homie has some horrible, you know, that downloading some crazy ass fucking pictures that, you know, like it should be fine. Rollback netcode or any netcode, how it handles the bad connections, the worst connection qualities, that's what you should focus on rather than best case scenario. If you have bad implemented rollback, sure, it's going to not be great. But if you have excellently implemented rollback, it's going to be fantastic. Even if they're across the country from you and you're playing on, like, you know, the connection quality in NRS games across the country is 120 ping or something like that or whatever, that's going to feel way better than delay-based netcode across the country where everything comes out mad slow. You have this huge delay on everything you do. All the timing is weird and messed up, and it's just, it doesn't work. I hate this argument so much. I think that this is my least favorite argument that I've seen from so many people, including fighting game developers. I've heard that this argument from. Fighting games is a niche genre. The player base isn't there to justify robust features. Can you imagine saying there's not enough players to justify basic functionality of a game? The things that I talked about yesterday were netcode, online interactivity with another player, being able to navigate menus and set up lobbies and instant rematch somebody. These are basic functionalities. Training mode in a fighting game, you don't have that many modes overall. Training mode is one of the most important for that reason. Most of the game is the fight between you and another character. Training mode is a very important mode for that. There's many game developers who are telling me, well, there's just not enough budget, or if I had more money, or if I had this, or I had that. These things are like baseline. I can't imagine saying out loud, one of the things I heard was, the ROI on these things that you're asking for is not there. Can you imagine telling somebody who's in Call of Duty, you know what, we shouldn't even make our multiplayer good, or whatever the game it is, right? We shouldn't even make our multiplayer good. Nobody uses multiplayer. The ROI on that's not good. Multiplayer is the primary thing you will engage with in a fighting game. The primary thing. There's not that much. Fighting games exist. There is single player content, often shallow. There's not a lot there. And then there's playing another human being, the core of a fighting game. The most important part about a fighting game is what happens between you and another player. Anything that ruins that is going to be a huge detriment to your game. Suggesting that the ROI on having good netcode is not worth it, to me, seems extremely ludicrous. There's you and another player fighting against each other. You can't have all fighting game players in the same location at the same time. They're gonna have to play online. It's one of the most important parts about the game, how the game plays and how you can connect and play other players. Netcode is a basic feature. The online play of a multiplayer game is one of the most important features you can offer, in particular when there is nothing else for you to do with this game online. There's only one thing to do online with a fighting game, and that's fight another opponent. And I saw a lot of people saying, well, these companies don't have the money to do it. SNK, Arxis, Bandai Namco, Capcom doesn't have the money to do it. And then on the other hand, you see the US developers that have done it are like indie developers. Punch Planet has done it. Punch Planet, indie developed game. People in the chat are like, what the fuck's a Punch Planet? How come some company that you have to say, what the fuck's a Punch Planet, has the budget to do this, but your favorite companies that you're defending can't do it? Skullgirls. Skullgirls is not a huge budget game, but they have excellently implemented netcode. I think even Fantasy Strike has good netcode, doesn't it? I'm not sure, but I am sure that God Complex hit me with the tier 1. Thanks very much. Serlin himself, appreciate you coming through. Obama was talking earlier about how Japanese developers are really holding us back. I mean, he understands as good as any of us that Japanese developers don't want to recognize these things. These are failures on their part. And it's hard to call them anything else. These things exist somewhere else. Not recognizing them and adapting to them is absolutely you not keeping your eyes open as a developer. It exists right in front of you. These are the main defensible points that I heard from people. One of the big ones was, if we had more money, we could do this. GGPO has been said by everybody that it is not an expensive thing to implement, and that building your own netcode is more expensive. Even to the point where like the people who own GGPO will help you implement it into your game. North American indies can do rollback netcode. Why can't AAA companies from Japan do it? If we had more money, we could do it. As I absolutely understand that money is important, but when you're considering a fighting game, there's not a lot of basic functionality that is there besides competing with one player with another. The core gameplay mechanics exist, and then after that, it's all about finding ways to make the connection between two opponents smooth. Not just connection, excuse me, in terms of netcode, but connecting to each other, finding each other, matching up, rematching in lobbies and stuff like that. That's the majority of the game. Most of your fighting game experience is spent like that, just like most of my time is spent thanking Burning Bees for dropping the 12 months. He's got a golden segue. And it seems so strange to me because it's like, these are the most basic functionality of a fighting game. And when games do these things well, it works. One thing that a lot of people said was, I don't see why Sajam's using NRS as a point of, you know, whatever. They have so much marketing budget and they have so much money. Of course they can do these things right. And it's like, we're now condemning a company for doing things right because they have the budget to do them. Don't you think a company like this makes money because they do things right? And even then, when it came to Mortal Kombat, they didn't have to rebuild the entire game for MKX to fix the netcode. They didn't have to do that. I'm sure that cost them, from what I understand, it was incredibly strenuous. It cost them a ton of money, and it was like a really difficult process, but they did it. And after doing it, it showed that the netcode for their games not only could be good, but it should be good. They recognized, you know what, we're going to put all this time and effort into rebuilding this so that Injustice 2 and now Mortal Kombat 11 will have excellent netcode. They didn't have to fix it for that game. Even if they recognized that netcode was an issue, they could have just saved it for Injustice 2, right? That's something that they chose to do. I disagree with you there. MK11 has okay netcode as best, definitely not excellent. Combat League is a mess. It definitely has excellent rollback netcode. If you're fighting someone with Wi-Fi, or if you're fighting someone from across the world and the connection is bad, then that is an example of a connection that is going to be bad regardless of whether you're on delay-based netcode or not. And then what's crazier still is I mentioned Killer Instinct and how good their netcode is. My favorite part about the KI devs is them saying, you know, we got this project late and everything. I'm talking about Iron Galaxy here. They say, if we knew what we did now about this, we could have made the netcode way better. They made so many improvements about the netcode. They like understood it even more. Could you imagine that? It's so crazy to think about, isn't it? If you have some crazy, actual, unstable 400 ms connection with someone, that's your connection with them in general. MK11 is very good at hiding bad connections the majority of the time. I mean, if it can be improved and they do improve it, isn't it a win-win for everybody? Absolutely. It's just they're not working on KI anymore. You know, the KI devs aren't working on KI anymore. They have other projects they're working on as a company, I assume. Yeah, Street Fighter 5's netcode is a disaster too. It's super bad. That video I showed earlier is a good example of it. All that Cygames money ain't gonna make Arxis Grand Blue Fantasy or Versus play any better. That's the thing, is people are like, you know, doing all these things, it costs money. But Cygames is filthy stinking rich and they're not gonna do it, right? The amount of developers who responded and was like, hey man, it's real hard to do these things. Money. Are all of you, each and every one of you, telling me that in every single case that you guys worked on, the company decided that making playable online netcode was not worth the money? And the things I asked for was the user experience to be workable, training mode, a tutorial, and netcode. Even if you have to fight for one of those four, like, fight for netcode. Everybody says GGPO is so much cheaper than developing your own netcode, but everybody just says it's too expensive. Netplay is a crutch used to solve a specific problem. Its existence harms fighting games. Someone replied to me with that. Can you imagine typing something so stupid to me and expecting me to reply to it? Come on, bruh. Can you imagine trying to justify that idea in 2019? That's so crazy, right? Like, dude, not being able to compete with anybody else who's not directly next to you. That's why yesterday when I was explaining these things and people are just replying with this dumbass shit, I was like getting tilted. There was a few people that were like, you know, Sajam, you were too angry when you were discussing this. And I understand that I came across very angry because the amount of people that I'm reading defending very silly things is just absurd. Online play and MOBAs is killing the genre. You got to bring 9 PCs somewhere and play each other. Why don't you just buy a house for every person so that they can just live in the same region as you to play fighting games? Perfect. The whole point of this discussion, this is where the discussion started. I watched Dota and I thought to myself, look at all these things Dota has. You know what I want? Not that. I don't want this. All these features and things that Dota has, all these incredible things. I don't want that. I want basic functionality. And for Dawn Cafe to hit me with a 35 months, can we start down here? I want base functionality is what I asked for. And so many people were like, whoa, let's not get crazy. Workable online netcode, good user experience, good training mode, a tutorial. I don't even fucking want the tutorial anymore. I'll just take it away. I'll take 3 out of the 4 things I want. I'm way down here. I didn't go up there and ask for those things. I understand that that's unreasonable. I just want a fighting game to have basic functionalities. That's all I want. I'll make the tutorials for all the people who have to learn the game. I'll just make it and put it on YouTube. Fuck the tutorials. Just give me 3 out of the 4 things that I want for a basic shell of a game. And people are like, Sajam, whoa. Hey, bud, we're going to pop a squad here, Junior. We're going to have a talk about the way you've approached this. You know? Gotta tell you, it's just a bit absurd. I'm like, huh? Yeah, it is a $60 product. It doesn't matter that Dota is free to play. And you're not paying for all those features that they have that are significantly better than what a fighting game can offer. That doesn't matter at all. I never said that. What I'm telling you is I paid $60 and I just want basic functionality. First give up on tutorials, then you end up with a long beard and a bald spot saying netcode can't ever be good. Yeah, that was a pretty crazy thing to hear too. Can you imagine saying that out loud? Insane. Good netcode exists. In fact, many games have had it already.